You sent me some screenshots of files. I wasn't able to put them right into the platform, so I'm going to do a screen share. It'll take us to my file folder, and I'd love just to walk through some of these, and we could kind of rehash the experience it was when you were putting together the campaign on neutrality in terms of flags and crosswalks, if you don't mind.
Yes, let's go over some of that.
All right, they're not in any particular order here, but here is a. Can you see that?
I can see a list, and so
I'll read it here. It says. From Doug, it says that it looks like it's a screenshot of a Twitter post. Douglas W. Judson, our firm will be covering the cost to ship all of Borderland Pride's remaining Pride Lives Here campaign signs to Westlock, Alberta. We went through this hateful small town bullshit here in 2020. We will do what we can to support other small places in need. So yes, the other side of this, of all the issues, will come out in droves, and this is the one thing, Benita, that I noticed that the left really has down to a science, where the right is really, it's hard to organize us. They're very organized and they support each other. That I'll say that for sure, that we definitely did take a page from their book there.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, the pushback, right? Because the people who are opposed to branded crosswalks, these are not hateful people. These are loving people. I've worked with these people, and this is not about hate. And so the people who have an opposing view attempt to portray it as this is about hate. And it's interesting that they try again and again and again to pretend people like me are hateful, and they attempt to smear us. And it disappoints me that there are actually, gullible people that fall for that instead of using their critical thinking skills, right? So for example, there's people, I'm over in my 40s, and there's people, they've known me for years and years and years, and they know I'm not a hateful person. They just know that I'm taking a stand on something. And so here's here's an example. So this fellow, so the problem is they've attempted to portray this as a hateful thing. And so what he's trying to do is show the group here that do identify with the Pride movement that, hey, we support you, right? And I'm not necessarily opposed to that. The only aspect of this I'm opposed to is that he's attempting to portray people like me as hateful. So if he would have just written the post differently, I wouldn't have had a concern about it. If people on their individual vehicles want to put their views, well, you go right ahead, right? I do it. I've got great stickers on my vehicle that present my views. But those views don't belong on a crosswalk. They don't belong on municipal flagpoles. We need to just have some boundaries here. And so the people who are standing up for boundaries, these are loving people, not hateful people. And so I'm very hopeful that there will come a time that this attempt to label people as hateful comes to an end. The anti-hate network in Canada, for example, there's just so much that they're like labeling as, oh, that must be hate. It must be hate. It must be hate. They're attempting to label it as hate when really it's just someone expressing a viewpoint that's different than yours. How is that hate? That's not hate. So I'm really looking forward to the day we can have these conversations. Like this fellow Douglas, I would totally invite him onto a show one day and have a conversation. Last year, by the way, TJ, this is something I forgot to mention. One of the ways of creating awareness for that crosswalk campaign was I hosted events. And on the event, it said, should Westlock get a rainbow crosswalk? Yes or no? And I had people come on my show and express yes and why, and express no and why. And one of those representatives was a fellow by the name of Will, and he's with an Alberta LGBTQ group. And what he does is he helped offer support to individuals who identify as LGBTQ who need support. Okay, so let's say they're being bullied, or maybe they're losing their home, whatever the deal is. So he came on the show and he talked about why there should be a rainbow crosswalk in Westlock. I mean, he doesn't even live here in Westlock, but he talked about why, because it makes these people feel supported. And so I allowed him to share his views and share his whys. And then he listened some to my views. By the end of it, he hadn't persuaded me and I hadn't persuaded him, but we at least had a discussion and we slightly better understood one another. And so that's what needs to happen here is more discussion. And so take, for example, when Daniel Smith presented on January 31st, her views, not her views, really, it's the UCP members' views, because part of that speech, I believe, she gave on January 31st was motivated by what the United Conservative Party members passed at the AGM back in November. So she gives this speech January 31st, and I love that speech so much. It's on my Rumble channel, DJ Benita. And in that speech, she speaks, in a sense, to the transgender people of Alberta. And she says, I care about you. I accept you as you are. Well, I made a sign, TJ. My version of protest sometimes changes. But the sign on one side says, I accept you as you are. And on the other side, it says, I care about you. There was an LGBTQ protest on Sunday, February 4th. So there's these Indigenous people and lots of people wearing rainbows, and they had an event. And I walked in holding that sign, and in a sense, I'm counter-protesting them. But my sign reads, I care about you, and I accept you as you are. So I asked people, what do you think of my sign? And they said, oh, I like your sign. And my response was, did you know the Premier of Alberta said that to the transgender community of Alberta last Wednesday? And some of these people were shocked. And as soon as, of course, I mentioned the Premier, some of them were very upset because they've made a lot of assumptions about the Premier. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to when we can bridge to understanding, because there's a lot of misunderstandings going on, and there's people that are like pushing and perpetuating the misunderstandings. And we just need to bring people to the table, have discussions, get the truth out. That's what needs to happen.
I think I probably differ from you a little bit on this issue, in that I think it's the inclusivity aspect of it, I think, is a bit of a poison pill, because I think the underlying ideology, like the people on the front lines, like the people on the street, the ones with the going through this or whatever, they don't, for them it might be about inclusion, it might be about feeling loved and cared for, but I think there's more. There's obviously like a deeper issue going on. And I in terms of neo-Marxism and communism and the breaking down of boundaries, destruction of the nuclear family and such. So I wouldn't be as probably positive as you are. And so we do need people like you, because people like me will not be well received by the other side, for sure.
Well, you know what? At that LGBTQ protest on February 4th, there was a communist table set up. And I was just shocked. Because here they're apparently protesting the Premier and her comments. Most of them didn't even know what she said. They're just blindly listening to what their leaders are telling them. So since the leaders smear the Premier, all these other people think the Premier must be bad. And I'm kind of like, take a step back, actually listen to the speech, So they had a communist table set up there. And I was in so much shock when I saw it. I had to go take a look at it, because to me, it's like, hey, how does this all correlate? And obviously there are connections here. A lot of people aren't aware of why it would connect. TJ, I'm sure you understand the connections, but we need to help make more people aware.
For anybody that does want to kind of explore that question and explore that information, I would just direct them to the New Discourses podcast on Spotify. You can find it from James Lindsay, Dr. James Lindsay. If you go to my Rumble channel, there's a couple of presentations. One he did in Calgary when he was in Alberta last October, and one from Edmonton as well. And he kind of really details that. I am not good at holding on to details in my brain. I do try really hard, but he gives a really, really good kind of layout of that. Just a massive blueprint that he really lays out there over the course of those. And if you want it to digest it in smaller bits, you could check out, again, the New Discourses podcast. He does 10 or 15-minute episodes where he kind of covers one little bullet point or one aspect of we'll call it the woke apparatus or the woke strategy, and really a lot of historical context as well. So I've really appreciated listening to that and getting a real steep education for sure. Okay, so here, vote no on February 22nd. No, vote for an inclusive Westlock. So this looks like this is probably a fundraiser on the other side of the aisle.
Yeah, so we had this amazing neutrality team come together last year. So July, they did a whole bunch of prep work, wrote the petition, they went to town council, one of their reps presented to town council, let them know that the petition was happening. Partway through petition collection of signatures, they gave town council an update. They let them know how many signatures they were at. So it's very, very polite. So the point is we had this wonderful group, and you know, they're called the neutrality team, and they had a website, everything. It's just super what happened. So then what happened is when we got closer to the website, this other group started as saying vote for an inclusive Westlock, and they're saying vote no. In other words, vote against a bylaw on neutrality. And so they organized, they did fundraising. The recently elected mayor of the town had donated $500 to this campaign. The recently elected mayor also did a number of videos telling everybody to vote no. So I actually wrote to Alberta's Minister of Municipal Affairs, Rick McIver, and I expressed concerns about this campaign and how the mayor is endorsing this. And in my view, the mayor should be neutral. He shouldn't be attempting to influence the vote. Like if you think about when you chair a meeting, okay, doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on. If you are chairman, you are to play neutral until, unless a tiebreaker vote is needed. Then you put your own views in. But if you're chairman of a meeting, this side gets to say their piece, the other side gets to say their piece. There's discussion back and forth. You run an organized meeting, so there's no arguing, and you play neutral. So the mayor failed to play neutral on this plebiscite. And I wrote Rick McIver, and I didn't get a response till after the plebiscite had wrapped up. I wasn't happy with my response from Rick McIver, but yeah, so I just wanted to show that to you, that even though we were receiving, you know, all this pushback for the bylaw on neutrality, we still passed it February 22nd. So
amazing. Yeah. Back to that town meeting we had a couple of days ago, and it may have even been last week. I can't even remember now. It's probably was. Anyways, my point is, there was a lot of chatter from the peanut gallery, we'll say, from the town that was there, saying, accusing the councillors of, you're just doing this because of your political affiliations. And the councillor, the one that they were arguing about, they really don't like her, that was acclaimed. She said, do you want us to take political positions? Like, we will if you want us to, but we don't do that as a rule, because that's not their job as the town council. And but people really do seem to think that they do take those political positions, and they're supposed to, like you said, they're supposed to stay neutral. They're supposed to represent the townspeople, and this is a perfect example of that not happening. So yeah, there's got to be some sort of ethical violation here for a mayor of a town to be doing this to side, especially on such a hot button issue.
Well, it is. It's a hot button issue in this community. So then they posted the results, and so here's their response. We understand many people are disappointed with the results of the plebiscite. We want to assure you that council worked diligently to explore every legal avenue to challenge the petition and its resulting bylaw. So I just find that interesting that basically council's saying we want to disrespect the will of the people. We're trying to challenge it. So please know the information being shared via social media only represents a fraction of the process that led up to the vote. Despite the outcome, our organization remains committed to serving the community in all its day-to-day duties and tasks. We know that Westlock is a divided community, but we remain dedicated to fostering and welcoming an inclusive environment for everyone. So it's so interesting sometimes how they play with words, especially this word inclusivity and, divided versus united. Like if we backtrack to say June of 2023, I was accused of being someone who divides the community because I'm expressing an opposing viewpoint to what council's putting through. So I just found that very interesting that, all I'm doing is opposing this resolution and you're calling me divisive. But in a free and democratic democracy, like in a free and democratic society, we are supposed to be able to say, hey, I oppose that viewpoint, right? And as it turned out, I obviously wasn't the only one opposing the viewpoint. There were lots. We filled council chambers. We filled the hallway. We had a rally outside. The petition in the end showed, and so is the plebiscite. So so to say people like me are guilty of dividing the community, that's not true. It's actually town council that divided the community because they wanted to put a crosswalk in that favors a certain group. In other words, this group gets to have their symbol in town bigger than any other symbol of any other group in town. And allegedly that's for inclusivity, but really it appears to make that group a priority. So that's not equal at all, because
No.
you're putting the symbol of a group in a sense, a prominent way. That's a group I don't associate with. So what is that saying to the people who don't associate with that symbol? So that's not inclusivity. So do you see? And it's so interesting how their arguments are. You know, they say, oh, you're the one dividing the community and you're not being inclusive. And I'm like, no, you're the one dividing the community. You're not being inclusive because you're trying to you're trying to impose a symbol on me that doesn't resonate with me. And all I'm doing is pushing back. So whoever works on this website here, I sure hope they've changed that staff member and the attitude is changing. I actually went to an event here in Westlock to talk about the municipal development plan yesterday, and I interacted with some of the administration. They were polite enough to me, even though they know I have opposing views. And it was interesting interactions, and I intend to follow up. And I'm just very hopeful that since now the plebiscite is behind us, and I feel like I'm hopeful they have a better sense of the views of this community, so they're going to listen. And so here's an example of a success story, TJ. There is this green space in town. It's not a proper park. It's just grass and some trees and maybe a bench. And it's in an area of town that has flooded in the past. Like we're talking people's basements were destroyed. So the town of Westlock was about to approve, well, let's develop this green space and put up an apartment building there. Well, the neighbors who had their basements flood, they flooded town council. Like the engagement on this issue was amazing. They flooded town council at least one meeting, and they presented and said, we do not want an apartment building here. Grass and trees and the roots of trees act as sponges, and they collect water, and they help prevent flooding. If you put an apartment building here, it's going to increase the risk of flooding for us. And so they pushed back on council and said, don't do that development. And guess what? It was a success. Council backed down and said, okay, we won't put an apartment building here.
Good.
So I know that's a small victory, but we need to celebrate it. And so the
celebrate the small victories. Yeah.
Get engaged. Yeah. Take action.
Now, I know you're being very respectful and being very kind and being very fair. So I'll go to the effort of just saying it myself. Town of Westlock Mayor and Council, you suck, and I hope that the next election you get your hopes and dreams crushed and you get replaced. So that's just my take.
TJ, you're making me laugh, so I'm going to just grab something here. Give me 2 seconds.
Sure. Vote Benita Pedersen for councillor. That's right. That's some high gloss, man.
Yeah, it is pretty high gloss. So I'm gonna run again. So I've got, you know, I still got obviously the same number, same email, and the website of the election. So I'll
just a sticker. Yeah, you'll be good. Okay. So what are we looking at here?
Oh, here's the actual plebiscite results. I think. Can we zoom in?
Oh, this is the notice of the vote. So this is, I guess, when they're telling them when the vote's going to be, and we have the result. Where is it? Here's the result here.
Yes. Yeah. So 663 to 639. We won by 24 votes. So that was over 1,200 people, over 1,300 people, almost 1,300 voted. That is such a good turnout. Like there are so many municipalities that you have a plebiscite or you have a by-election, your turnout. Engagement, and I am so happy for the results of this plebiscite.
This is about the same amount of people then that voted for the new mayor and councillors, right, in that by-election. Seems to be checkout, like same amount of numbers roughly.
Yep, about 1,200. Yep.
Oh, amazing.